Hello and welcome to another presentation on the architectural toolset of ARCHLine.XP. This is actually the fifth part of our architectural training series, during which we are going to look at how to build together a two-story family house, part of a larger terrace building. Now the thing is that today is the fifth class, and originally I wanted to talk about rendering today. But while I was putting together this show, I realized that there's a lot I haven't talked about regarding materials. So today's session is actually moved to next Monday, and instead of talking about rendering and visuals in general, we have to talk about material editing and material settings, because that's something what we have to dedicate some time to it. Your host is, as always, is myself, Zoltán Tóth from ARCHLine.XP, partner manager and also a CAD and modeling enthusiast. And what is a better way to spend our Friday in this lockdown quarantine than to learn something new about modeling? So that's what we are doing. Just a quick reminder, last time we looked at how to create documentation, plot layouts, sections, elevations, how to publish our drawings. And now we are working more towards the other end of the design process, which is visualization. So that is what we are ultimately working towards, and that is what we are hoping to achieve by the conclusion of this set of seminars. And as always, I urge you to ask your questions. The questions last time, for example, were great, so we learned a lot from each other, and I hope that you managed to learn some few things from me, because I'm not only trying to show you how things work in ARCHLine, but I'm also trying to show you and teach you how to be more efficient with your time, because ultimately, it's all about creating the largest amount of data with the shortest amount of time. So let that be our banner. So let's look at the model. One other thing, as always, stick around till the end, because I have a tiny surprise for you what we are going to look at the end of this session. So this is where we left off. And that was the model I used for documentation. Two-story, the rest of the buildings is not there yet. We have a nice roof over there and all the documentation on the right-hand side. We do not need these elements at the moment. How do we hide them? We shouldn't delete them. We should just hit X and they are going to be closed. Another logical question is, where are these things going when I'm closing them? It's very simple. They are going to the hidden views tab at the bottom. So here you can retrieve them as you want. Let's just make this larger, fit to screen. And now I have, I think, the 2D and the 3D next to each other. There's a few things I do not need. And that is the dimensions and the schedules, because what I'm looking to do now is to create the surroundings, because if I want to make a realistic visual, or at least something which looks like the real thing, then I have to make sure that I have something around this building. Now you remember last time or the time before, we created some preliminary building blocks around our little house, but now we are going to go one step further. But for that I do not need a documentation part. So how do I hide them? The practice that I usually follow is that I highlight one of the elements I do not need, and I check which layer they are located on. I think it's dimensioning, and this one is on group, and that one is on text. So if I go to the layer walk tool, which I love this tool, it's much better, much easier to work with than the layer manager, because the layer manager shows you all the layers that you might have. However, the layer walk filters down to the layers that you're actually using, and that is very, very quick, because then whatever you are hiding, it's going to be visible right away. So let me just show you what I need to do. I need to disable these three layers, which I do by hitting Control and just clicking on the elements that I don't need. You see things disappearing. And also there was another set of data what I don't need, and that is on the text value. And I think the symbol would be the last one, which I cannot find right now. I think it was group. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so now hitting OK, things that I do not need have disappeared. What about the surroundings? If you remember, 2 times before this one, we created one layer called surroundings, where all the neighboring buildings were located, and that's what I can pull up again by clicking on the layer walk and finding surroundings, and just hit Control, click on it, and now the surrounding buildings appear. If I zoom out, I see that, well, there's nothing visible in here. So if I enable the visibility of the surrounding buildings, how come I cannot see them? How does that figure? Now, the way this works is that you're always rebuilding the 3D based on what you have enabled of the 2D. So if you turn things on and off, Then you have to manually hit the 3D hammer, and that would rebuild the model with all the surrounding buildings around us. Okay, so far so good. Remember, we have a two-dimensional floor plan, or mainly a situation plan, based on which we have sketched these buildings. So we have to retrieve that drawing again. So I'm just going to go to the layer manager, find the relevant layer, which is Elatonova Start-2D. By the way, you can download the content that I'm using during this show. It's in the video description just below my my video. So just hit OK. And now the location plan is there. So the things I need to do, let me just zoom out so that way you can see a bit better of what's happening here. The things I have to do, I have to create a few more additional things, and one of those things should be the continuation of this building. If you remember this building, let me just pull up the illustration. This building is part of a larger complex. I'm not going to model all the building parts, but at least I have to show something which is showing that the building continues. So how do I do that? You might remember that we used the building volumes, and that's what we are going to use now as well. So let me just zoom into the space where I'm going to work and go to building, and it's under terrain, building volume. And what I do, very simple, just sketch the rough layout of the building that I want to edit. Let's say it goes like this, and I'm going to snap to this point. There you go. Let the green axis appear, otherwise it's going to be difficult to sketch. So there you go. Hit enter. Now the building should appear, but first I have to fine tune the shape. Now I know for a fact that this building altogether is 10 meters high, which is 10,000 millimeters. I'm working in millimeters now, but you can change that as you want. And the other thing I have to change is the B value, which is the facade's height, 6,500. That's actually this height over there. Hit update. Nothing happens seemingly because you have to define the roof's inclination, which I know is, let me just check my cheat sheet, 65 degrees for all sides. Okay, this is not done yet because I know that this part should be a gable end. So I'm just clicking on the part which I want to zero out, just like that. So you see now one part is zeroed out. The other side should be, instead of 65, it should be 55, and update. Okay, and the building is created. Something is off. Let me zoom in so you can see it better. The building is a bit higher than it should be, and that is because the base offset is not right. You can see that the building is actually floating above the plane, what I'm having here. And it's not only that, all the other buildings are floating. That's something what one of my colleagues brought my attention to, this fact, so I have to amend that. So what I'm doing, I'm going to the floor plan, and I'm just going to highlight the building that I have created, all 4 parts. And I have several choices here. I can either change the base elevation here to -300, or I can just manually move them. You see that now it's much better. One thing is not correct yet, the material. You see this default material is not going to be good, so I'm just going to hit on one of the buildings that I have, right click, and I'm going to go with find material and just drag and drop onto it, replacing one material on this object only, and there you go, it's fixed. Well, actually, I don't like this. I want to show that this is a conceptual continuation of the building, so maybe a grayish color would be better. So let me just find something among the materials. I think dark gray. Yeah, much better now. Next thing I have to figure out is basically how to create the sort of fences and the boundaries. You see on this 2D plan that I have a street, I have a sidewalk, and I have a couple of lines over here signifying fences. So that's something that I have to figure out, otherwise my drawing is going to be pretty poor. So I'm just going to zoom out a bit, and I'm magnifying the 2D plan for focus. And what I'm doing is I'm going to go to wall, right click, and I have to define the fence, which is the same thickness as this one. I know for a fact that the thickness should be 200 millimeters. The height, I think, and let me just use again my cheat sheet, should be 1200, and the base elevation should be, base offset from the floor is -450. The materials should be bright white, and when I do that, I can actually retrace these lines. Again, you could be using the Vol on DWG feature, whichever fits your purposes better. I'm just going to now click on the lines and retrace them. If you start drawing something and it's not appearing on the right side, you just hit F5, and now the wall is going to be positioned the way it should be. So I'm just going to keep on drawing. We don't have to draw the whole thing, but at least we have to give some context to our drawing, otherwise it's not going to be that exciting. So let me just draw something here. Now you see that the line is in the middle, so I have to position this wall as well in a way that it's actually snapped to the middle. So that's what we are doing, right? That. And I think the back garden should be modified as well. And here we go. I know the thickness is different now, but for a conceptual stage it's going to be fine. So I'm just going to do it like that. And now I have a couple of walls around my building. Okay, the next problem is, how do we create a sidewalk over here? Something that that signifies that that there's some life in here. I mean, everything is white now, so who would know what is what? So let's zoom out and investigate, how do we create this part? How do we carry on with creating the surroundings? This, I'm sure you can see on the screen, these grayish parts have to be created somehow, so let's investigate how do we do that. For this we have a very, very special tool, and that is called, under Slab, Open Foundation. What it does is it actually creates a slab which doesn't have an ending, so it's not, you know, positioned around a closed polygon, more like an open chain. For that we have to set up how the slab is going to look like, because this is going to be something with a parquet covering. That's not really good for external purposes, so I'm just going to hit the material setting and just going to say concrete for all the sides. And again, I'm going to use my cheat sheets to see the elevation values. And just 1 second, I think, well, I think I can position it minus 150, and the thickness should be 300. Later on I can change that if I think it's needed. And another thing I have to set up is the width, this one, which I know it's 1600 and something, so I'm just going to have to go to Slab, Open Foundation, and now the software asks me how wide is going to be this path. So it's 1670, and there we go. Now here's how we sketch it. We click on one of the starting points and I start to draw, but you see the slab part is now positioned on the right hand side of my reference line, so I'm just going to hit F5 again, and it's going to be put on the other side. So what I do, I sketch to the points I want to trace over, just like that. I think this is all right. And now I see I have a big piece of sidewalk, which is, I think, is even too thick for my purposes, and it's actually floating around in the air. Now, this is the time when you can use either the offset, so just select the element and change the offset to something else, maybe minus 300, or if you're at the very early conceptual stage, just select the item and find its marker and just move it downwards a bit, and then you would be ending up with the right outcome. Okay, so now I have a sidewalk, but I need to signify the street, which is an asphalt covering. So how do we do that? Same tool actually, but this time the values will be different. So I'm just going to say Slab, Open Foundation, and the width should be 4000 something, but for that I have to use my cheat sheet again. These numbers are very, very difficult for me to remember because there are so many of them. I'm not sure how you take care of that, how you keep track of your numbers, but any kind of good tips and tricks would be very welcome from my part, because I know for a fact that this is going to be 4000 something, 4660. There you go. And now, picking the points, I can again sketch over my drawing like that. Okay. See, there's an interesting part over here. So this one is nice, but this one is actually not, because it's overlapping my drawing. So I have to click on the edges of my slab, offset it back until it hits the right spot. Now there's a curve. So what do we do? First of all, we click on the side and we insert a node to the part where the curve is beginning. And then I'm just going to move this node to the part where the curve finishes, and then I'm just going to hit the edge, turn into curved edge, and there you go. The ending is sort of curved now. But again, the height value is not good, thickness is not good either, and the material I'm not satisfied with, so I'm just going to select this element, and I'm going to say that the base elevation, I think minus 300 would be fine, and the thickness should be 150. Or again, if I'm not really satisfied with this, because maybe I want, I think this is good height, but maybe the pavement should be changed a bit. So I'm just going to hit the pavement and elevate it just a tiny bit. Okay, here's what happens. If I want to elevate it, then it's going to snap to all kinds of different angles. So I'm just going to disable the snapping for now and do it like that. I think this is going to be good. Okay, here we go. Now another thing, the asphalt has the same properties as the sidewalk. So how do we amend that? By the way, before you do anything else, make sure you enable the magnet again. Otherwise, you're going to have a difficult time positioning your elements. So how do we add this a different texture? We go to the texture library and say that we want to have, I think asphalt would be asphalt. I managed to type it. So I'm just going to drag, release it, and I'm going to replace this material with another one in my library. So if I did everything right, then my location is starting to look a little bit better and more exciting, but there's a painful emptiness over there. So I'm just going to have to change the backyard's lookout. Now I'm going to navigate now to the backyard, and here's one trick I picked up along the way. If you want to orbit around something, if you just hover your mouse over it and hit the shift key, then it's going to orbit there. Or alternatively, you can just manually pick an element around which you want to orbit, hit the scroll and shift key and move your mouse, and you see how the orbit center just jumps to another place. Let me show you with this window. So now up until to this point, this was the rotation center, but now we are changing to something else, and here we go. So that's easily how you can navigate between things. Now next task is, I want to create a backyard over here. Everything is white here, I can't stand it, so I just need to make it a bit more exciting. So I'm just going to magnify the 2D, and you might have guessed it, we are going to use the slab tool again, and I'm just going to use the same size as this this part over here. So I'm just going to hit the sidewalk next to my building, say create similar, and I'm just going to sketch these points just like that. Again, this is all about finding the right nodes, so nothing exciting is going on here, except that I know for a fact that this patio over here has a swimming pool in it. How do we create one? First of all, let's give this another texture, which looks like something a bit more interesting. We give it another covering. And now I want to, well, I'm not really fond of this covering, so I'm just going to find something else, maybe a deck flooring. I think that's going to be better. Okay, I think it's much better to an external part. So how do we create a swimming pool? Well, for that, first of all, we have to dig a hole into our slab. And how do we create that? Well, with the drafting tool. We start with a general rectangle, and with this we can sketch out the shape of the swimming pool. Let's say it starts here, and in this direction it goes 5,500 millimeters, and in this direction it goes 3,500. Let me just show you once again how I did this rectangle, because this is a very, very good tool. So let me just get rid of it. And again, general rectangle, pick one point, start moving your mouse, release it, and just type in the value 5,500 and move up north to 3,500. Okay, and the next thing, I want to curve the edges, because I don't like how sharp these edges are. I want to create this very nice, organic, rounded up shape. How do we do that? I click on the element and I click on fillet, and I can visually fillet down the edges like that here. And now I don't have to do it manually for every single one of them. I just have to click and the edges would be rounded up. But this is still not a hole, so how do we create one? Selecting the... Let me just move this a little bit further up north, because otherwise my things are not going to fit in here. So I think this is better now. So my swimming pool is going to be here. Clicking on the slab, go to the context menu and go to the hole element, create a hole. And what I do, I click on the closed loop, and now the hole is created. So now it's a see-through hole. So the problem with this is that there's nothing under it. So there's nothing to signify water. So how do we do that? for this, we need to have another piece of slab in here. And the way we sketch it, we click on the existing slab, right click, say create similar, and we start sketching the next slab, tracking the contour. But how do we do that? Click from one straight edge to the other one, and when you get to a curve, you go up to this menu and say you want to have an arc. Click to the other side of the arc and curve it, see? Just like that. So click here, again arc, click here, curve it, click, curve. Thank you very much, by the way, for the music suggestions that you submitted yesterday. They were very, or was it the day before? I can't remember, but they were very good to listen to some music while you're modeling. So now the thing is that I have two different slabs, but the materials are the same. So what we do is that we go to the design center and again go to the material settings, and let's look for a material which is actually water. Water number 1 would be good. Replacing on this object, there you go. Okay, why would we want to use this particular texture? That's because it has multiple properties we can harness later on when we use ARCHLine.XP Live, but that comes at a later stage. For now, I'm just satisfied with selecting this element and moving it a little bit down, doing it visually. There you go. So now the swimming pool is done. Okay, the next part is how do we populate our floor plan with objects and furniture, especially external furniture. We want to have a nice patio over here, maybe a parasol and things like that. Now for this, we have an object library within the software. Now obviously, well, that was the last thing I used, so that's why these things appear. These are the HVAC elements, but you get the idea. You can browse between the different elements in our software. So you have different chairs and tables, etc. However, we are not trying to make the software bigger and bigger all the time by adding new and new elements, because honestly, fashion and taste changes very rapidly, so we cannot comply with that. Instead, we are encouraging our customers to reach out for external sources and bring in elements from there. One of these sources is actually the beamobject.com library, Synchronia, our own showroom, and the Cadenas library, but the best I like to use is the Trimble 3D warehouse. Now, let me show you how this normally works. Let's say that we want to have two sort of like a lounging sun chair in the garden, so I'm just going to find one. I think I know the German word for that. For those of you from Germany, please don't laugh at my pronunciation when I say this. This one is good. So I'm just going to hit OK. And let's just check if it's going to be good. I think this is not too large. So you always have to consider the file size and the polygon size. Obviously, you could load up large and elaborate models, but if they are just a tiny part of your design process, you shouldn't spend too much effort on this. But if this is just a tiny, accessory, then this 300 kilobytes would be fine. But if it would be 20 something megabytes, then I would consider it twice. But otherwise, this is going to be good. Now, when I download something, the way it works right now is that the software would download an SKP file format which you can later import into the software. Normally, this component ensures direct import into ARCHLine, so I wouldn't need to download this element separately. I can just hit download and the object appears in my model. For now, because of maintenance services at 3D Warehouse from Trimble's side, I cannot do it directly, but I can just download this and grab it in. I did that before, so I'm just going to go to my library and type in. I don't like to download things while I'm streaming because sometimes the stream speed is suffering because of that. So I'm just going to drag and drop the element, one here and the other one is there. Now I don't like how they are situated, obviously, so I'm just going to select the element and find the marker in here, which is able to rotate my chair just like that. So one chair is going to be here and the other one there for the wife. There you go. Oh, it's the other way. So, or maybe that's better, depending on how long you are married. Sorry. So I just rotated the two chairs. Maybe this one is in the way, so I'm just going to move it a little bit closer. Maybe they are newlyweds. And the other thing is that I need to have some kind of other objects here. And let me just for a second talk about our own object library. And especially about the soft furnishing, awning and parasol items. These are our own items, so you can just bring them in. And the great thing about them is they are fully parametric. So they are not just a single collection of 3D shapes. Instead, they can be fully customized. The number of panels, for example, or the sizes, materials could be customized over here. So there's a set of objects in ARCHLine which you can at will customize. I'm just going to move it because now it's giving a nice shade, but only to the neighbors. So I'm just going to move it and move it back here. I think this is fine now. So this is how you populate your elements to make it a little bit more interesting. Obviously, this is way too empty over here, and I would need to add some grass over there. But this gives you a very nice idea about how to populate the floor plan. There's just one thing I think is missing, and that is a ladder to the swimming pool, and that came from the 3D warehouse as well. And there you can do that. So just drag and drop. And here's a very good way to demonstrate what happens if the base offset of the object is not good, because you need to push this down. How do we do that? First of all, this object is not at the right place, so I'm just going to move it 90 degrees there and move it to the swimming pool. Here's the thing, I need to position the element with these nodes over there, so I'm just going to go to the moving marker and move element from, and just click on this marker and snap to the side of the swimming pool. And the last thing I need to do, I need to push it downwards, which again you can do it either with markers or visually like that. So you can either do it visually or by typing in the right numbers to the absolute elevation or the base elevation. Okay, I think we are done with this. Not a big swimming pool, but it's enough for our purposes. So the next thing what we have to do is set up perspectives. We have been working with perspectives for a long time now, but I never actually talked about how to set them up. Why is that important? That is important because I want to toggle back and forth between this view, the street view, and another view, which is actually the staircase. So how do we set them up? Well, there's a tool for that, obviously. It's under this eye menu. By the way, here's the toggle between axonometry and perspectives. Now we are in perspective, and if we click on the eye, we can set that up. I'm sure that this is trivial for you, but let me just for a second talk about what are axonometric and perspective views. If you are in axonometry, you see that distances don't get any shorter when you are looking at from another direction, and things try to maintain their proportions. And no matter how far you zoom in, you won't ever enter this location. You just get closer, but you don't enter it. So that's not the natural way of seeing. Obviously, this is good for planning larger plots or for architectural design. However, if you want to work on smaller parts, maybe this over here, then you have to be in perspective. The perspective is defined by where you are, which is the blue marker, where you're looking at, which is this purplish marker, so you can rotate that, and how wide you are seeing, which you can set up the way you want. But you know, if you set it up too wide or too narrow, then your view would be a bit less natural. So it's good to keep this as 60 degrees. And also the target where you are looking from should be a human-sized sort of perspective. So it should be 1700 maybe, because that is, for example, my eye level. I'm approximately 1 meter 70. No, I think I'm a bit shorter than that. Sorry, I just lied about my height. Who does that? And another thing is where you are looking at, which is at the moment 2000 centimeters, so 2000 millimeters, 2 meters. So that is what we are seeing at the moment. I want to move a bit closer, so I'm just going to grab this red marker and move it a bit closer like this. Hit OK, and now if I make this larger, I can fine-tune what I'm seeing by clicking on the right click and moving my mouse. This is fine. So that's what I want to see on my perspective. So I just hitting the eye icon and hit plus. Now, what happens is that now I have a view _0, which I'm not satisfied with. So I'm just going to rename it. Now, about renaming, every single perspective that you are putting in here is going to be ordered by their names. So you have to add a number to the beginning of the name, so that way you can make sure it's going to be ordered to the first of the list. So this is going to be 01 backyard There you go. So now it's number 1, and there's another one, which is the staircase. You see, I can just click between the perspectives, or I can use the page up and page down keys to go wherever I want to go. This view we have set up before, but now I'm moving it a little bit, and I want to override this. So I don't want it to revert to this view. I want to move it like this. So I'm just going to go to the plus icon and hit save. I'm sorry. And let me just, I think I'm just going to discard this, and just going to do this, eye icon plus, that is going to be 0 to staircase, and I want to have another one which is on the outside, so I'm just going to do it like this. And especially here it would be nice to have an overview, so something which is maybe a bit higher, like this. That is going to be 03 street high. And I'm doing another one where I'm looking at from a human-sized angle, from 1700, and I'm looking at 2000 centimeters. Sorry, I managed to type something else. So like this. I think this is a bit more natural. Maybe this time I need to come a little bit closer. Before I save it, let me show you how to fine-tune your visuals again. So if I go to the 2D and I see this tiny marker, this is me. So that's where I am, and that's where I'm looking at. So if I grab onto this triangle, I can move myself a little bit closer to the drawing, like that. By the way, you can rotate it as well, but I think this will be fine. So now I'm just going to go back to the eye icon and save it and say this is 04 street, and it's going to be low. Okay, now let's talk about this marker again, because this is very exciting. What happens, you might ask, if I want to change the floors that I'm looking at? Here's the ground floor. I'm jumping to the first floor, but my perspective has not changed. So how do I do that? If I go back here and I move my marker, I see that everything is on the street level. But if I go one floor up and now I marker my perspective marker, then you see it changes with the floor where you actually are. So this tracks where you actually want to be. And if you want to set up a perspective very quickly, just grab onto it, move it the way you want. There you go. So now I'm just going to be in this room. So that simple as that. So that's how you can easily navigate in your perspectives. Let's go back to the ground floor and let's talk about materials, because that is the next thing what we have to set up. I'm just checking real quick my checklist. Actually, there's one thing I forgot to mention, and that is how to create animation, because well, to be honest, still images are not going to cut for now. We have to get a bit more crafty with our design. What's the point in having all these buildings if I can't show them in an animation path? So let's say I want to make an animation which, let me just put it to large screen, it goes from here to there, and I'm just going to pan around this building. Ambitious. How do we do that? We go to the 2D, highlight it, and I go to view and animation path and define path. So what I do, I click on the point where I'm starting from and click on the additional sort of stops where my camera is going to move to. So once I'm done with that, I hit enter. And from each and every point, which is actually 3, I have to define where I'm looking at. So I like to get the same node all the time, so that way the focus of my video is not going to be moved out of focus. So I hit enter. And now the software asks me what are the positions of the camera for all the 3 parts. So when I'm starting, I'm looking from 1.5 meters to 1.5 meters high. For now, I'm going to accept that because I want to see the result. If I hit play, the software now plays me the view that I have created. Okay, it is a tiny bit fast. So I'm just going to hit the animation path settings. And I'm going to crank this up to, let's say, well, I think 7 seconds will be fine. Here you can also define the resolution. For now, that's not needed. Let's look at it. I think if I jump back to the beginning, I think this one would be better. Now, another thing, this big fence is covering half of what I'm trying to see at the beginning. So what I do is I'm jumping back to the first keyframe, which is this green button. That is where you can actually define where the camera is, and I just start to pan upwards, just like that, with the holding the scroll button and moving it down a bit. So I'm starting now from this height, and I'm moving gradually downwards. Okay, I'm going to the second keyframe, and I'm going to elevate that as well. So I'm just going to go back here. And this should be elevated a bit too, like this, maybe like that. And now let's see what we have created from the beginning. So I have this very nice movement of the camera. There's a tiny jump in there, but because I haven't calculated how my camera should look like. But I think I'm pretty satisfied with this result. I'm not going to submit this to the Academy, that's for sure, but for showing the preliminary stage of my work, this is pretty good. Now, let's close this down for a second. And let's see what happens if I close this down and I want to regenerate my animation. I'm just hitting on the path and hitting on the context menu. And now I can just create animation, and that way I can just pull this up again. If I'm satisfied with what I just saw, I can save it into an AVI file, which I can do that. Just give me 1 second to find the right path, which is in the webinar folders. Just give me 1 second and I can show you what happens if you make an AVI. I'm just going to name it somehow, which would be, what should be the name? It should be webinar video walkthrough. Save. And now the software starts to export this. It has to export every single one of the frames, which might take a little bit longer. Meanwhile, you can do something else in your work as well. But this is, again, something that you can send to your clients even right away. So at the end, we are going to look at how this turns out. But that, again, is a kind of property which you can show your clients even before the full is finished. Oh, sorry. So now it's created. I think I just terminated it with this stunt, but I think we can watch whatever we have managed to create, because I think that was our purpose. So here you go. So that's what we have with the animation. Now let's return back to the software. I'm going to close down the animation window, and we have to move towards rendering. We cannot avoid this any further. We have to talk about how to create renders, but before that, today we are only going to talk about how to set up the right materials, because that is a key for getting right renders. Actually, for the right visuals, you have to get two things right. One is the materials, the other one is the light settings. For now, we are going to deal with the former. Now, let's move into my drawing and talk about the content that we have that we call textures and materials. I already showed you parts of this, so this would be partly a repetition. Let's say I want to change the texture of this property. So I'm just going to go to the material library, and I'm going to look for another texture, which would be this. Dragging and dropping, and now I have two choices. One choice is that I'm going to replace all the instances of this material with another one. The other one is that I'm only going to change it on this object. Let's demonstrate the former, but first let me just go one staircase up, and you see that here on the first floor you have the same kind of texture. So how do we change this and that one to this one? And that's what we are going to investigate with this work with materials now. So let's pick the one what we need, dragging, dropping, and replace one material with the other. Click enter, or just click. And if I go up, I see that the other instance has been changed as well. Let's go back and undo this change by either hitting Ctrl Z or this button in the toolbar. Dragging and dropping again, and say that this time I want to change it only on this object, like that. And if I go up, then it's changed. Oh, another trick I haven't mentioned. If you are in the action of changing materials, then whatever you are picking on, it's going to be changed. But if you want to close this action, you can either hit the escape key or just right click, and it's going to be terminated. Now, regarding our software, there's a bunch of materials. There's really a wealth of different materials in here. For example, this parquet, there's a lot of different types you can add. But maybe you are in the situation where you like what you see, but you are not really fond of the tone of this material. So how do you change the color of this content? Right click on the element which holds this content, and click Find Material. Here we go, so it's Parquet Rovere number 3. And if I go to Adding Color, this tab comes up. And this tab helps you to find another color alternative to what you are creating right now. So if I move my marker over here and I want to create this kind of, well, it's a bit, you know, brownish, I'm just going to hit OK, and it changed. So that way you are adding another color as an overlay, as an extra layer to your material. If you don't want that, if you don't want to disable that, you just remove the check mark. So this is not going to permanently change the feel and look of your material, but you can just, it's like color correction, if you like, and that way you can override how it looks like, but only temporarily, because you can at will disable that. So that is for recoloring your materials. The other thing what I want to mention is how do you get materials into ARCHLine. Now that is a very exciting topic, and let's first talk about these panels up here. As you mentioned, as you remember, the first time when we met, I downloaded this from a 3D sort of collection of elements and I added them, but there's no texture on them. This might happen, even though you are working with manufactured items, sometimes the textures are missing. So how do you add a texture to it? There's a very neat tool for that, and everything starts with an image search. So I typed in solar panel texture and I found an image over here which I like. So all I have to do, I have to right click and I have to say copy image and go back to ARCHLine, go back to the material library, hit the cogwheel and say create new material, which is opening up a default tab. And here I just have to hit paste. Or alternatively, I can go with browse, and if I have downloaded this thing, which I did, I'm just going to do it again, then it's just going to be entered like that. So you can either copy paste things directly from a web browser, which I think is very, very easy, because then you can just find whatever you need, right click and enter it into the software. Just make sure it's seamless. And then you can fine tune its properties. For example, the name should be solar panel texture webinar. I'm wondering if I can remember that, but maybe I can. Category should be building, or maybe, yeah, building is fine. Subcategory should be other. And for the appearance or the physical properties, these are the sizes. Now these are the sizes of the material based on which it's going to be repeated. Now I know for a fact that this is not seamless and I don't want it to be repeated, so I'm just going to say that this is going to be a stretched material, which means that whatever the size of this surface is, it's going to be stretched over that. Appearance. This is mainly about how it's going to look like on rendered images, so you can toggle between different functions. So I think we just have to find something which has a sort of like a glossy surface, because this panel should have a layer of glass on top of it. Thermal parameters we don't care about, and just a repetition, hatch in 3D and hatch on section are the things that we discussed before during documentation. Hatch on section would determine how this material should look like on a section. Hatch in 3D is going to determine how this content would look like on an elevation drawing. But now we are not going to change that, so I'm just going to hit OK. And here we go, we have the content over here. I'm just dragging and dropping and saying replacing one material on, but only on this object, because if I would say on another, then all the instances would be changed, but maybe something else has this very same whitish color. So I'm just going to say on this object and just keep on clicking, and the result would be this. So I think this is pretty good. So now my environmentally conscious building is getting together. And one very vital thing what is missing in what we haven't talked about is the view and representation style. So how do we define how we want to see this model? Actually, there's a style switch over here, 3D preview mode. Let me talk about what this means. I talked about this briefly before, but repetition never hurts. So wireframe would give you sort of like an X-ray vision. Shows you the whole thing, which if you have many things, it could be very confusing. So maybe you should have to go with a hidden line removal, which gives you this paper cut model. And then the difference between, for example, colored and realistic and consistent color. Now seemingly these do the same thing. What are the differences? Consistent color makes sure that all the textures have the same color and same tone no matter how far, no matter where they are. While if you go with realistic, things might have a different feel. For example, the top of this material is darker than the side, even though they have the same properties, but the realistic is going to give you a bit more lifelike result, while consistent color is better for negotiating the materials with your client, because then you can be sure that even if the material is here over there, it doesn't matter, it's going to have the same outlook. Now let's talk about shadows for a second, because I was asked before, how do you create a and I think now is the time to talk about questions. That was a question about can you export the AVI video with shadows? Definitely you can, and let me demonstrate how that is done. So I'm just going to hit shadows on, like that, going back to the floor plan, clicking on the animation path, create animation, and I think, oh, actually here I have to, yeah, you have to manually set up here again. So even though you have set it up in the 3D, you have to set up in the video as well, so make sure you do that. And then I'm just going to this time create the AVI for good. I'm just going to overwrite what I have created. So that was one of the questions we covered. And another question: if we find a material and take a photo of it, can we enter it into our project? Yes, you can with the browse tool that I have showed you before. I'm going to show you another way to do it. So remember before what we did, we created a new material and we just clicked on the browsing action and we opened up the image from there. But there is a very exciting new topic about that. I'm going to go back to that. Another question about navigation in 3D, I think we have talked about that. Somebody is asking about the 3D connection mouses, which as far as I'm familiar with, let me just, they are very intricate tools for navigating in the 3D space, but we at the moment we do not support them. So that's how you create an animation with shadows. I hope that was an answer to the question. And let's return to the matter of how to use an image in the model. Now, I don't have a photo here what I could be using, but I think if I showed you with a plain image, that would be fine as well. So let me say that this is, for example, one of the scenes I was using. So, or no, here we go, renders. I think that's better to use. So I'm just going to dragging and dropping one of the rendered images, what I have, like that. And once you have inserted a raster image, then you can just hit the context menu and go save and save as material. So if you have, for example, a picture on the wall, and then yeah, I was told that I should remove the header question time because we are losing eye contact. that's a nice one. So I'm just going to go with save as material, and then I can just save it. So regarding the pictures, you can even clip and crop them, so you can just fine-tune them, and later on you can save them. You can create seamless materials from them. So that is basically how you use images. Just a quick reminder, that's one way. The other way is that you add a new material like that. I'm sorry, create a new material and then you add it like there. So that was what I wanted to say. And now there is no excuse. I have to talk about rendering as well, but only on Monday. Like I said, this session today was supposed to be on rendering, but I realized that there's a bunch of things I haven't talked to you about regarding the visual styles and visual representation. So hopefully that was an eye-opening experience for that. And the next time on Monday, we are going to talk about how to get all these things rendered. We are going to discuss lights, ray tracing, shadows, solar access, and all kinds of different things, which would make a visual like this one. Let me just move my screen over here. So we're looking for something like this. So obviously, one of my colleagues created this from my model, adding way more detail. We didn't have time for that at the moment, but that would be the outcome that we are looking for. So the result should be, let me just again show you another example. Should be something like this. So this is what we're ultimately looking for. Well, our sad looking model is a bit far away from that yet, but we are going to get to this stage as well. So for now, I would like to thank you for your thank you for your attendance and questions. The questions were again spot on. So if you have anything on your mind what I haven't discussed, keep the questions coming and I will discuss them on Monday when we talk about rendering. Now I'm not going to postpone this any further, so rendering will be the next topic. Thank you for your attention. Like I said, another surprise for you, which is an internal rendering made with ARCHLine.XP Live. So enjoy and see you on Monday. Have a very lovely weekend.